Who are you? What's your role? And who do you work for?
Hey, my name is Thomas Graf. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Isovalent, and I was also an original project creator of Cilium.
What are 3 Kubernetes emerging tools that you're keeping an eye on?
I think, well, of course, Cilium and Tetragon. Those are obvious. I'm also having a close look at Dagger. I think very interesting. And in general, I'm observing and monitoring all tools around on-prem Kubernetes use because I see Kubernetes being applicable to on-prem more and more. And clearly there is a gap in tooling that is needed, that needs to get solved.
What do you think is the primary reason that's driving people to on-prem?
That's an interesting question. Part of it is definitely cost, right? Like customers and users have bad experience in terms of cloud cost, but then also some customers have never managed to move to public cloud, so they're still on-prem, and they need to bring Kubernetes to them. So it's a little bit of both, but it's usually one of these 2 reasons.
William Morgan said that eBPF is bad for service meshes, alluding to the idea that the technology doesn't work well for this tool. What are your thoughts on using service meshes, and what kind of features do you evaluate service meshes for?
So I think service meshes, whether you need a service mesh or not, I think everybody should decide. I think service mesh includes a lot of different things: encryption, authentication, resilience, load balancing. Not everybody will need a full-blown service mesh. Some people will just be fine with OpenTelemetry or just Cilium as a CNI or just an API gateway. I think whether you want a service mesh and what type of service mesh is on you, I think eBPF is a great building block for solving many of that. It's not a silver bullet, and it's not like that you should be able to solve everything with eBPF. You don't have to solve everything with eBPF, but it clearly does have benefits in terms of performance, latency, reduced overhead. So whenever we see a need or whenever we see a use for eBPF to lower the overhead, improve the performance, we definitely make use of it. But Cilium Service Mesh is also not dependent on implementing everything with eBPF. If something is not doable with eBPF, we go back to Envoy and do the regular proxy route.
William explained that ambient mesh is a viable alternative to having too many sidecar containers and service meshes, but it comes at the expense of not having the pod as a single independent unit. What are your thoughts on service meshes? Should you use one or not? And when should you use one?
So I think this multi-tenancy and whether to sidecar or not to sidecar question keeps coming up. And I think the wrong answer is to always demand and require sidecars, right? But there's also not a single right answer. Maybe a sidecar-less architecture, as Ambient or Cilium Mesh does it, is useful and valuable for many people. It doesn't have to be the only answer. The argument on multi-tenancy, I think I've heard that over and over again when containers came around, right? Believers, or like when we had VMs, the statement was also made, hey, containers will fundamentally destroy the multi-tenancy guarantees that VMs have introduced because we're now sharing a single operating system. And the trade-off is exactly the same with sidecar-less architectures. You're now sharing a proxy, whether this is per namespace or per node, and this has benefits, like in terms of resource utilization, but it also has a couple of downsides. In the end, this is a trade-off, and you should look at what you need, and based on what your needs are, you should select either a sidecar or a sidecar-less service mesh.
Matthias believes that on-premise deployments require proper education and attention, especially regarding managing on-prem architecture versus cloud architecture. After spending a few months building an on-prem Kubernetes cluster, he shared this advice. What's your experience with bare metal clusters? And how does that differ from using Kubernetes in the cloud? What would you have liked to know before starting Kubernetes on bare metal?
So I think bare metal is definitely harder. And the reason why it is harder is because you have fewer abstractions already at your disposal. If you're in the cloud, you already have a hardware abstraction layer provided by the cloud provider. You have an API to deploy load balancers, addressing, VPCs, virtual networks. On-prem, you need to build all of this yourself with tools. I think people coming from that data center on-prem world, they're still used to, I would say, I call them legacy vendors, right? Like doing networking, doing storage in a way that we have been doing for the last 25, 30 years. They're not cloud native yet. But there's many emerging tools, including Cilium, that help you hide that abstraction or hide that complexity on the on-prem side and give you like a true cloud native feeling while still implementing the traditional enterprise requirements that you have on the on-prem side. So I think it's a lack of abstraction that makes on-prem harder right now. And as long as these abstractions are not present, we of course have to fill that gap with learning, with actually understanding BGP and all of these like concepts needed for on-prem. When the tooling will be ready, or once we have closed that gap, I think the barrier will be much, much lower.
Kubernetes is turning 10 years old this year. What should we expect in the next 10 years to come?
I don't know. I think we'll probably have like AI, ChatGPT based like prompt-based Kubernetes engineering in some way. But I think the more interesting question is like what's next with Kubernetes? Like, will Kubernetes be kind of just have disappeared into like the layers, as we have many of such layers in our infrastructure sandwich so far? So I would say most likely there will be some level of automation on top of Kubernetes where AI may play a role. Whether this is for security, troubleshooting, automation, we'll probably have more automation in terms of how to operate this infrastructure. Maybe not in Kubernetes itself, because I think Kubernetes is getting boring for a good reason, but actually as a layer on top of Kubernetes.
What's next for you?
Well, we're joining Cisco. So that will happen in a couple of weeks, and we will continue helping Cisco build cloud-native networking. We will look forward to bringing Cilium and Tetragon and our tools to the broad Cisco customer base, which will definitely be a major next milestone for our company and for the customers we have so far, and that will be an exciting journey.
How can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Slack. Slack is probably the easiest way to reach me. Kubernetes, CNCF, Cilium, Slack. You can easily find me as Thomas Graf and just DM me.